Welcome to Hickory Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ann Vertivek, and I'm here with my son, Will Audley, and my dear friend, Sharon Anderson Morris. And I am so excited to bring you an amazing interview that we had with Andrea Crosta from Earth League International. Sharon spearheaded the interview, which, of course, she did a wonderful job as always. Sharon, tell us what you think about the interview.
I think that we learn more about what's happening in international crime on many levels that are shocking, that only Andrea Crosta could explain. And he's been the subject of two documentaries, Academy Award documentaries. And I'm just really honored that, he was agreeable to take the time to share the hard work and all of him, everything he's putting into trying to change our world for us today. So I'm just so excited that we had that opportunity, and I think it's going to be really exciting for everyone to listen to.
Yeah. I mean, to bounce off of that, that was incredible. We just got done interviewing him. He just kept going, and it's just incredible to talk to someone like that. And in my mind, he's an international environmental detective and crime analyst, and you never hear about that. And we have the unique opportunity of talking with him and getting his perspective on life and how he operates and how he affects his direct change on the world. It was just an incredible interview to be part of, and I'm excited for the viewers and the audience to listen to it. I mean, what an incredible individual. Alongside that, he had such a unique take on our Triple H, our Hope, Health, and Healing that we keep coming back to in this podcast, and he even went further and kind of broke it down into the day. At the past episode, we talked about how health is kind of the the health is the present, the hope is the future, and healing is healing from the past. But he even broke it down into the day. His morning, he spends his day on staying healthy. Throughout his work day, he keeps his hope. And then at the end of the day is his healing time and how he does that. And, stay tuned for how he all does that and accomplishes that. But I thought it was just a fantastic all around, and what an incredible individual. What do you think, Mom?
The fact that he is hopeful with the right support that he can eliminate environmental crime and wildlife poaching in a whole continent in 2 years, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, we need to help with that support part, but that in and of itself just can keep all of us going to know that there are people out there that can help, save species, save the environment, try to improve planetary health. And he is clearly one of them. It was really inspirational.
Yeah, and I think it would be important to note that he rejects a certain type of hope. This and he'll go further into it. But when you listen to it, you'll understand what he's talking about. But he has his own personal hope that and belief and kind of this inspiration that keeps himself going. But he doesn't buy into this overall ideal of hope that might be sold to us. And it's so interesting to listen to him talk about.
I've interviewed hundreds of people that are doing really very, very important things in the world. And there are a handful of people that just make me want to keep on going and keep on believing and keep on helping and can keep working together in unity. And I think that that's what he's doing. He's unifying people to make our global situation and all of it that's involved a better place to be.
Yeah. Well, if we don't have any more, without further ado, we'll get you over to Andrea and enjoy.
It's really exciting to have our first interview with Andrea Crosta on behalf of Hickory, which I will talk a little bit about because I've known Andrea since 2019.
Yeah, more or less, yes. Yeah.
I saw The Sea of Shadows, and I also saw The Ivory Game. And when I say those two documentaries, I have chill bumps because these are about Andrea's work. Andrea is one of the most incredible people that I've ever met because nothing has slowed him down in trying to help our planet and its inhabitants. And that's why there's two documentaries that are made about him, The Ivory Game and Sea of Shadows. We being Fire Films, has tried to help support your work in species, saving species from extinction, and we'll always be behind you. So we don't have that long of a time to talk about all that you've done, but I'll review just briefly. You have had over 30 years of experience in conservation projects around the world and a parallel professional career. You said you've worked for almost 20 years as an international consultant to companies and governmental agencies on technologies and services for homeland security, law enforcement, and intelligence. You're also the founder of Earth League International, and you're the executive director as well. And that is an LA-based nonprofit organization that investigates environmental crime. You have created and are project manager of the Wild Lakes Project, the world's first environmental crime whistleblower initiative. You're a world-renowned expert on environmental crime convergence, which a lot of people don't know what that means, which you'll explain, which is a convergence of environmental and wildlife crime with other serious crimes such as money laundering, human smuggling, drugs, or transnational organized crime, killing of species, human trafficking, and it goes on and on and on because all of the same people are involved in all of that, aren't they?
Correct, yeah.
Andrea has routinely collaborated with various law and enforcement and governmental agencies within the United States, with which ELI has been sharing numerous confidential reports on the most important environmental criminals in the world. His work's been featured, and this is how I know Andrea, in the Netflix documentary, The Ivory Game, and the National Geographic documentary, Sea of Shadows, both executive produced by Leonardo DiCaprio. And I say these because it's really critical, I think, for all of those who hear our podcast to watch those films. We all have Netflix, we all have National Geographic, to get to know and see what Andrea has really, really put all of himself into. These two really do a very good job, I think, in showing what you've put your life on the line for and put your heart on the line for. So, Andrea, it's my honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'd like to ask you a few things that people would wonder, which is, how would you ever get into this kind of business in the first place? And when did that happen?
So as you said, I started in conservation many years ago. My first master degree is in zoology and biology. And so, but then life happens. So without never leaving conservation, I moved into business. Back in '98, I launched the second e-commerce company in Italy, that was the prehistory of shopping online. And then I went all the way up and then all the way down with the NASDAQ crash in 2001. So I continued to do business for a while, actually for a long time. And I mostly, as you said, work in this, private sector dealing with security, intelligence, all kind of technology for homeland security. And I was in Kenya in 2010, working for a security company. Our client was a prominent Somali politician with a lot of problem of security with Al-Shabaab and terrorist groups. And it was right in the middle of the elephant poaching crisis when we were losing 35,000, 40,000 elephants every year for the ivory trade. And I was right in the middle of that. And I start going out with the rangers in my free time. I even organized training for them. But again, I had another job, and until one day, I was the witness of one of those terrible massacre when they, poachers can kill 30, 40 elephants in a few minutes with AK-47, and I was there with the rangers, and I could see, in the face of the rangers, their whole world was asking them to solve the problem. And I thought, that's insane, that's unfair, that's actually stupid. It's like asking your local sheriff to solve international narco trafficking. It's not for them. So because I was coming for many years in this security intelligence, I start asking questions, and I start asking, okay, who is using professional intelligence? And by professional intelligence, I mean former CIA, former FBI, former intelligence agency, to fight back, because we are dealing with, elephant poaching, ivory trafficking is part of what we call environmental crime, which is the third or fourth largest criminal enterprise in the world, and up to $260 billion per year. So of course you cannot fight back with the rangers. So I start asking, okay, who is using professional intelligence? The answer was nobody. And this is when I decided to drop what I was doing. I was unhappy anyway. And with this obsession, desire, call it as you want, one day to be able to create the first intelligence agency for Earth. And if you allow me to oversimplify it even more, to be very clear, the first CIA for the planet. So the same way we fight other global threats like narco trafficking, terrorism, weapons of mass destruction, where intelligence is at the center of the strategy to fight back, I wanted to create something similar to fight environmental crime. And fast forward 10 years, more or less, here I am.
Where do you feel like you need to go next? And what kind of help do you need to have that happen?
So in the past, during the past 4 years, while researching and investigating environmental crime around the world, and the way we do it is very similar to an intelligence agency, meaning we have undercover operatives that infiltrate those networks. We become really good friends with the most important wildlife traffickers and environmental criminals in the world. We stay with them for years. We extract all kinds of information about their businesses, their lives, even legal business, because they constantly overlap legal with illegal. So while doing this, and while trying to go as high as possible, try to reach the highest possible level of environmental crime, we realized that the most important wildlife traffickers and environmental criminals in the world and their networks, they don't do just that. They do much more than that. So we started to, we were one of the very first, if not the very first organization in the world, like NGO, starting to investigate and research what we call environmental crime convergence, which is the convergence of environmental crime with other serious crimes, like money laundering, human smuggling, narco trafficking. And just to give you a concrete example, when you meet these people, and again, we are talking about the highest possible level, there's nobody above them. During a meeting, they can offer you 5 tons of shark fins, ivory, rhino, tiger parts, jaguar parts, seahorses, and at the same time, they can offer you money laundering services, human smuggling services, and tell you how they work with narco traffickers for all kind of smuggling. So this is what convergence means. And of course, it's environmental crime convergence makes the whole thing even more complicated, if possible, but also offers us the opportunity, and this is exactly the reason why we're doing this, to go after these people for crimes that are more serious than environmental crime or wildlife crime. This is exactly how we're trying to change the game, how we try to scare them off. you raise the bar of the conversation. Right now, their risk is basically zero. They are not these big people. All the risk are on, on the shoulders of the small fish on the ground, poachers, illegal fishermen. They take the risk. And we're trying to change this. So we're trying to help law enforcement agencies, especially in the US, to go after these people, to investigate these people, and eventually to charge them not for wildlife trafficking, but for money laundering, for example. The difference is that if I charge you for wildlife trafficking, I don't know, you go to jail for 1 or 2 years, or maybe not. If I charge you for human trafficking or money laundering, you'll be away for 20 years. So the message is different.
What's interesting is what you've done and what you created is, and you and I've talked about this, you can only talk about so much because what you're doing is a lot of this is very high level of undercover work.
Yes.
But at the same time, you need the exposure to be able to get the kind of funding that you need to hire the people to go in and do these dangerous things. And you're always involved with that. So it's almost it's a very difficult job that you have to try to get the exposure without getting the exposure.
Yeah.
And how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's difficult. I always make the joke that the most difficult part of my work is not dealing with the most important wildlife traffickers in the world, is actually fundraising. Because when you cannot explain well what you do, or at least until the end of the operation, is obviously very difficult to fundraise. We live in a world of NGOs and environmental organizations, some of them really big. They are able to constantly put out press releases and pictures and videos, and very often beautiful videos of cute animals and beautiful sceneries, and we cannot do that. Because we decided to deal with the dark side of environmental protection, and you cannot take it lightly. I have teams on the ground almost every week, and their security is my only priority, honestly. Plus, and we do it when we start working with law enforcement agencies. For example, we are working with at least 3-4 different agencies here in the US. You cannot jeopardize their operations once they started, right, working on our information. So there's always this fine balance of, we are almost constantly in stealth mode, and once in a while we just deactivate the stealth mode just to explain what we do and try to raise not only awareness but also funding, of course. And certainly this is our most significant challenge, if I have to be honest. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the end market? It was really fascinating talking with you, saying that even though we're looking at the illegal poaching of elephants for their tusks, the jaguars for their teeth, shark fins, et cetera, et cetera. It's really almost the same end market, right? The same people are involved. Is that correct, right?
Yeah, the same people are involved from a criminal point of view, okay? Yeah. So it's the same network involved in wildlife trafficking, illegal fishing, deforestation, illegal logging, the trafficking of illegal timber. And at the same time, they are smuggling workers from Asia and into South America and then the US. At the same time, they are laundering money for mafias and organized crime. And they're right in the middle of all this. They're really good in doing that. I have to say that the vast majority of the most important environmental criminals in the world at the moment are Chinese nationals. And this is, for someone could be an inconvenient truth, but it's the truth. And my job is to tell you the truth. My clients, forest, elephants, rhinos, dolphins, and so forth, these are my clients. I work for them. So I have to be very truthful in my, when I expose what I know. Right. And this is the truth. And for a variety of reasons, because of course, the vast majority of these natural resources goes to China, of course. because they have an incredible network around the world of different people and businessmen and traffickers and different kind of mafia as well. So it's kind of natural that they took over this part, right? Of course, they work locally with many other people and nationalities, right? And so that's a big problem. Also from a law enforcement point of view, an investigative point of view, because there's very few law enforcement agencies in the world are able to investigate those people, let alone to infiltrate them.
Right.
So that presents a very significant challenge, and this is where we are trying to fill the gap. Unfortunately, the narrative that you see out there, media, donors, NGOs, is still very focused on the small fish, still very focused on the poachers and the illegal fish. Every time you read something, 99% of the times is about a poacher, a ranger, an illegal fisherman, or an illegal fishing vessel. And so people think that is the problem. And I keep repeating, consider that poaching exists because there is trafficking. It's not the other way around. So you have to address trafficking first of all. But it's more difficult, more challenging, also more difficult to fundraise for, and therefore very few people do it, to be honest. That's the reason.
You know, you and I had an interesting conversation recently. Me being documentary film CEO, trying to find the most important films, I think, in the world to show to the right people. I've seen the struggle for, there's a certain amount of funds, right? And so when we're the people are fascinated by your work, and they don't realize that giving money to the film is not giving money to the subject of the film.
Oh, no. No.
And people do not understand this.
I understand.
So they feel like they're with, and I've done this, you see me, we've been on stage
Yeah.
together. Fortunately, I think we had the opportunity to raise money for the vaquitas, where other people were trying to raise money for the film.
Right.
And directors don't make a lot of money. They put a lot of work into their work, and I understand what they need money, but nobody really understands that. I think the critical part is what moves us is your work. So helping you to keep doing what you're doing is critical to get funding for, not just finding a film that moved their heart and giving the director $100,000 to say thank you. I wish we could, all do both, but that's just not how it works. And then there's this big controversy about here's these funds, who gets the money, right? So I am here always, as you know, as a supporter. Tell me about next week. You're having a fundraiser in LA, right?
Yeah, next week we'll have our first fundraiser ever in LA. We are actually based in LA, and nobody knows about us in LA. So, and also, of course, COVID made it very difficult, of course, to do in the past 2-3 years. So we decided to do this first funds and friends raiser, because we also need to raise friends and supporters. It's really not our jam to organize fundraisers and galas and stuff like that. We're not designed to do that. So we always need help, external help, because it's just too much for us. And hopefully we'll, but this is exactly to raise money that we need to grow, because it's really, and in this more intimate setting, it's easier for us to share certain information. For example, if you go to our website, I think we can put maybe 40% of what we do is on our website. The rest, we can't do it. We cannot do it. We will put in danger so many people. So, but during these more, small gatherings, fundraisers, then we control the environment, and we can share a little bit more. And then with big donors, we can have one-on-one meetings and be fully transparent. They will know exactly what we are doing right now. They will know about exactly which US law enforcement agency is working with us at the moment. Some donors might be able even to talk to the US government about us. And this is to make it as easier as possible to trust us, because I understand if you don't share a lot of information, it's difficult.
So yeah, I think, and we talked about this, I think that if it's possible to have the people, a few people with a lot of money versus a lot of people with a little money is really what you need for ELI to go
Yes,
forward with.
absolutely.
Yeah, so if we reach out through our networks, we'll be
Absolutely.
able to find information about how to contribute to ELI, Earth
Thank
League
you.
International, on your website.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Are you seeing anything? I didn't talk about this before. Are you seeing any new targets for species that are becoming extinct that you're now working on to try to protect that we haven't known about before?
Well, we're working in many places right now. We've been working a lot in the Americas, and by Americas, I mean from Canada to Brazil, all the Americas, including the US. In South America, we have been working a lot on it's an interesting story. There are kind of the two apex predators, one on the ground, on land, and the other one in the ocean. So jaguar and shark. They are both trafficked by the same people, by the way. So this is an example of species, what we call species convergence, meaning the same network, same traffickers trafficking multiple species. In this case, they are after shark fins, as you probably know, and in the jaguar, they after the fangs and the bones, sometimes the skin. And so we have been working we identified what we believe are all the most important trafficking networks at the moment in Latin America. They're all dealing with both sharks and jaguar. We know them intimately. We know who they are, who are the leaders. We've met them several times. Of course, they don't know that it's us, they're meeting, of course, but that's part of our tradecraft. And there we have important operations going on. We actually last year helped the Bolivian government to arrest all the most important jaguar traffickers in the country. We basically decapitated jaguar trafficking in Bolivia after 1 year of work. And these achieve also another objective that it's important. When we came back to Bolivia after this arrest, again undercover, we met the few remaining international traffickers. They were all scared to death because of the arrest, and all of them were not buying anymore for the time being. And that's my point. So you don't have to arrest them all. You will never be able to do it. You have to scare them to death. You have to send a message. You're used to a cost of business of 0. Now it's not 0 anymore. Now we are after you. We'll find you. So we want you out of nature crime. You can continue with other crimes if you want, will not be my problem anymore, but we want you out of nature crime because it's not 0 risk anymore. And this is what we are trying to achieve. But of course, you have to apply pressure constantly, of course. And here you go back to fundraising issues. Very often donors give you the money for 1 year of work. And then the year after, they change their mind. They're not interested anymore in Latin America. They're interested in Africa. And that's it. And you have to start from scratch. And this is not how to work, of course. We need the serious, committed donors who understand the value of long-term work. So this is what we need, honestly, to move forward.
And I've watched you, of course, in the films. You put your whole self on the line here, and that's where we're coming back to Hickory, Hope, Health, and Healing. You probably got very sick from being so stressed from the hard work that you've done. You're not the first person that I've talked to who got very sick from the stress from trying to do the right thing. Do you feel that your hard work has attributed to illness, and how are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, I had cancer, and I had a lymphoma that was treated successfully here in Los Angeles, and it was part of, of course, a tremendous stress. Lasted for almost 10 years. So, yes, it's part of the job. but I also learned a lesson. So it was a very clear message that the universe sent me. So I'm now taking precautions. I'm trying to work much less than before. I put my, I came up with some rules for not working in the weekend, not working after dinner. And before was, of course, 24/7 for years and years and years. So I learned that lesson. And yeah, and that's, I share my life with a dog, and he helped me a lot. And we, walking with him on the beach in the evening that's all I need, basically, to decompress and slow down, and become a normal person, at least in the evening. Of course, when you have teams all over the places undercover, first of all, you're worried about them. And then they constantly, I'm bombarded, not myself. I have a group of, my team is incredible. I mean, my team they do the work. Okay. The real work is done by my team, not by me. So they are the real treasure of my organization. I just supervise. And, but we are bombarded by information coming from the field with, you can imagine, gigabytes of videos undercover, audio conversation capture with hidden devices that's to be translated, transcribed, pass it to the analyst, all kind of photos, documents, constantly, and about dead animals, pieces, contraband, smuggling, people, whatever. So you really have to set some limits and boundaries, otherwise you're 24/7, you live with that. That's why it's super important to come up with a mental structure to deal with that.
People don't make me cry very often, but when I talk to you, I start to cry usually.
I'm sorry.
We talked yesterday about, we're about hope, health, and healing. And you said something really interesting about all three. So talking about healing from what you've experienced and watched and are a part of, you talked about your healing. You said walks on the beach with your dog. You talked about music.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit more about how you heal from these excursions that help you to keep on getting yourself back.
I mean, I try to, because my work life has been for many years hyper complicated and hyper, imagine, so many years dealing with transnational organized crime, different countries, different cities, different continents, all kind of adventures. And, I was also part of those adventures very often. Now I cannot do it anymore. So when you stop working, personally at least, I desire a very, very simple life. That's all I want. So my social life is as problematic, of course, but that's another, or another conversation. But again, walking on the beach with, earphones and music, and maybe once a month going to hike on the mountains, here behind Los Angeles, and even going to hike at least twice a week on, the mountains around Los Angeles, the Santa Monica Mountains. That's all I need. I'm not into anything else. I'm not into luxury. I'm not into restaurants. I'm not into bar scenes. I don't even drink. So my life is borderline with boring. The non-work, but that's exactly what I need, because the work life is insane. So with that, I keep myself sane and grounded and normal. Yeah.
And what you said something really interesting to me, which I still am trying to figure out. I was thinking about this morning about hope. Tell me about what you said to me about hope. That there really is no hope. It's something different for you.
Yeah, they ask me, of course, many times, and my answer is always the same. I do not need hope to do what I do. Hope is not even part of my vocabulary. I never mention hope, and I actually dislike hope, especially fake hope based on nothing, based on wrong assumptions. And all of us, we live in vicious cycle where governments, media, and NGOs give you hope, and they sell you hope, and then they get your money, and then they sell you hope again. And sometimes is borderline with scam, because there's no hope if you continue like that. If you change, then let's talk about hope. But if you continue like this, it's a scam. And that's why, and as you know, for me, nature, since I was a small kid, forever, I mean, as far as I remember, nature, animals, it's my family more than my biological family. So I can ask you, do you need hope to fight for your family? Certainly not, right? You fight for your family, for your partner, for your son. You don't need hope to fight for them, right? And I'm the same, and I'm actually asking people to be the same. Don't always look for hope, just fight for them because they need it right now. During the films, the documentary, the two documentaries, in both cases, Ivory Game and Sea of Shadows, of course, that, you know, dozens of hours of interviews with me. And there was always this moment with the director and the producers during the interview. Okay, Andrea, now give me hope. And I hate it. And I said, listen, right now we are doing the wrong thing. So there's no hope. And they hate it, of course, because they needed hope. And I understand, I'm not against hope, but intelligent hope, you know, hope when there is for real hope. And I understand it's important for the young generation. It's important for the public. I understand this part. It's not that I don't understand. But for me personally, I absolutely don't care about hope.
And that's really fascinating because I think the people donate money for hope.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And you're doing the work because it needs to be done.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
that's sort of totally, totally
Exactly.
not related. It's like, and I finally, I've never heard of anybody say these things like you're explaining this to me. I know a lot of people that are doing some really difficult things. I've never asked them about hope. They just do what they're doing because that's what they say that has to be done.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I feel like, well, if I give you $10,000, I have hopes that I can make a change. There's a really fine balance, right?
Yeah, of course. And you're right. You have to hope that I can do my job.
Yes.
Okay, but to do my job, I don't need hope.
Right.
Yeah, I need coffee sometimes.
You do. You don't hope. You do. And
Yeah,
Right.
I do.
Yeah.
Like I would do it for my wife or for my son or for my partner, exactly in the same way. I don't care about hope.
It's Nike. Just do it.
Yeah. like exactly.
Just do it.
Jane Goodall says something like that. Don't say I can, say I will.
I will. Exactly.
Do
exactly.
it. Don't think
and
about
Jane, I mean, Jane is a good friend of mine and is a beacon of hope for everyone. And she's right, talk about hope, because she talks with, young generations and they need to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
When I talk, usually I'm drier and a bit more, like not for everyone.
You've seen it all.
But but I'm tired of, I've been listening, I've been hearing about hope all my life, and things went, didn't improve.
Yeah.
So stop with this hope.
And Anne was saying, Anne, who I as our co-host, I love Anne. I grew up with Anne, and Anne is a doctor. She's an ER doctor, and she's an integrative medicine doctor. And she when and I was going to bring this up, but when Anne and I were little, we went to the zoo together, and I was 5 and she was 5. We're 2 weeks apart, and she didn't want to go to the zoo because she said all those animals are in the cages, and it hurts me. And before that, I loved the zoo. And I've never had experience at a zoo ever since. She totally was right. And that's also when I learned the elephant can hear through their feet. And why do we put cement zoos with elephants in cages with cement?
Right.
Ouch. So Ian, why don't you talk a little bit about the health aspect here, and any question that you or Will would have for Andrea?
Well, the one thing that came to mind early on is you're basically doing what the FBI did to Capone, right?
Yeah, I actually, it's interesting that you mention it, because our approach to fighting environmental crime through the lens of environmental crime convergence I call it the reverse Al Capone approach. Meaning Al Capone, if you remember, was taken down for crimes that were less serious than what he actually committed. It was like tax evasion. Okay, we are trying to do the opposite. We are trying to take down these people for crimes that are more serious than wildlife crime, where everyone is obsessed with that, right? And believe me, it's not. Sometimes they don't get what I'm trying to do. I've been talking, especially environmental NGOs that are really focused on animals. You explain them this approach, and they tell you, no, Andrea, they're killing elephants. We have to jail them because they're killing elephants. And I'm trying to explain, yes, I understand this point, but it's not enough. So I'm trying to come from a different direction. Forget about elephants, because if you jail them for elephants, they will stay in jail for a month. Okay, I'm trying to get rid of them. So you have to use a different method, which is the reverse Al Capone approach. That's funny that you mentioned. Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
I do think to be successful with work like you're doing, it does require several groups to come together with different expertise.
Correct.
So you've already mentioned, legal, more investigative FBI types. You need the people on the ground, the rangers, that sort of thing. What else? What other areas can help contribute to your cause? Now, I know you didn't have this question before, and I apologize for that.
No, it's fine. No, we don't use rangers. So we are divided basically in so the operation part, because then there is non-operation, which is everything else, right? Communication, networking, advocacy, and all the rest, of course, that I also supervise. In the field, operation, we have, so my right arm, Mark Davis, is former 28 years with the FBI and the CIA. My left hand is also CIA. So they helped me, first of all, to design the missions and to make sure that, mitigate risk and try to come up with the best possible mission design. In the field, we use only undercover personnel. Their identities is confidential, even within our organization. So we're only 3 people who knows who they are.
Yeah.
Our board, for example, they don't know who they are. Okay, it's too dangerous. In the field, we only use them. So we don't use anything overt. We don't use police. We don't use rangers. Only undercover operators, and they are specialize in pretending to be someone else, pretty much, and they do this for years with certain people, so they're really good in that. And then we have a third group, which is crime analysts. So we have 2 people, two women based in Europe, and their job is super important because they make sense of all of the ton of information coming from the field. And sometimes not even the undercover investigators realize what they just collected until the analysts really work on it. And to give you an example, for every 2-3 weeks of undercover mission in the field, the analysts need to work at least a month and a half, just on the data. Okay. So it's an incredible amount of work. So this is operation. So basically mission design with former FBI, CIA, undercover operators in the field, and then crime analysts. The crime analysts also have the job to produce the confidential reports that we share with law enforcement. So that's why their job is super important, and they know way more than me. So her name is Chiara, my chief analyst. Brilliant young, she's not even 30, and she's super, and she knows everything. Sometimes they ask me questions about this network or that network, and I say, I'm sorry, I don't remember. You have to ask Chiara, because she knows everything. And I'm not. So yeah, we are a small but really nice group of people. And I cannot be more proud of my team. I always repeat it. And really, the universe sent these people to me because they came to me. Not one of them. I didn't find one of them. They all found me, and that's incredible. So it's some of them stalked me for maybe a year before a meeting. Please, I want to work with you. but this is what I want to see in people, right?
I
And
get, yeah, I guess that's one reason I asked, is that I think that the work you're doing is unique and inspirational. And I didn't know what other skill set, but clearly, since it's so clandestine, you have to limit
yeah,
the people involved.
in the
Uh,
field. So
Yeah.
then on top of operation, of course, I have another colleague. Her name is Ali from here from Los Angeles, and she's invaluable on millions of other things. She's in charge of social media, fundraising. We write together articles for everyone that we publish on LinkedIn. We once in a while, once a year, we put out at least one public report, and for everyone, and it's usually super interesting. So I need people also for that, not just on the cover. And it's yeah.
I asked you who your hero was, and I was not surprised because you and I share the same hero.
Yeah, Jane Goodall, Dr.
Yeah.
Jane Goodall, yes, absolutely.
Jane Goodall. And I also said that you're my hero as well.
Thank you. No, I don't
You
deserve
are.
it at all.
No, you are.
My team is the real, is the real deal. But Jane is she dedicated all her life to conservation and to explaining how it's important. And even at the beginning of her career, she went through incredible challenges, just being a woman and being a woman in the field, and being a woman in the field who for the first time talk about chimpanzees as sentient creatures, and she fought with her professors that she wanted to give names to the chimpanzees that she was studying, and till then only numbers. So she's really one of a kind. I mean, she's so inspirational, incredibly inspirational.
Will Audley has a question for you. Will, let's go ahead, and Will is part of our team. He's our production manager. Will, would you like to ask Andrea?
Yeah, absolutely. First I just wanted to first say thank you for all the work that you do. Obviously, we're super appreciative, and the world appreciates all of that. I thought your Triple H, the Hope, Health, and Healing, was so unique and awesome to hear. I just wanted to recap it a little bit for our listeners. You started with health, and obviously you were diagnosed with cancer, and it really made you analyze your own life, and how to live a healthy life within your own way. And what you said was you kind of structured your life a little bit more. You essentially established a couple rules that allowed you to continue on with what you're doing, your incredible work, but also live a healthy lifestyle at the same time.
Right.
And I think that's something that as we all venture into our own worlds to try to help the world, that's like a very big tidbit that is important that we can know is we have to keep ourselves healthy, and you got to find a way to do that in your own way. So I thought that was really cool to hear.
Yeah.
And then a little bit on the healing side, you talk about the walks on the beach with your dog and the headphones and the music, and I think that's a very common thing among us three, my mom and Sharon, is we live similar in that way, and keeping the healing. And then you went on to say that your personal life might not be the most exciting, actionable type of life, but that allows you to keep that exciting, actionable work life, and then you have a boring personal life, boring with the quotes around it, because obviously it's not boring to you, but that allows you to keep moving forward and heal from the whole process of the chaotic nature of your work life. And finally, to recap, the hope. And that was so fascinating what you said about the hope. I think that in my mind, there's two different definitions of hope, or ideals of hope. One that I think that you are actively rejecting, and that's this hope that is sold to the population, hope that is wrapped up in a box, and presented in a way that is supposed to inspire people when there really isn't much to be inspired about. And you've rejected that from a young age because you've been tried to sold that to yourself so many times by society and civilization. And that is, you reject that and you say, just do it. And I love that. I think that there is a little hope inside of you, and I don't want to speak for you.
Sure.
I think that the personal hope, it's not like the one that's wrapped up and sold to us, is because you haven't given up. And since you haven't given up and you still continue to go to work every day, there's some I believe that you have your own version. And I think that that's inspiring to our audience as well, is you don't have to buy what society is selling to you, and telling you what we should be hopeful about, what the world should be like, and how it should present itself. No, there's a hope that's unique to every individual that we drives us every day, and we can create that ourselves. It doesn't need to be sold to us. Am I,
No, correct. Personally, the structure, absolutely spot on. I mean, I have my own structure that sometimes it sounds silly from the outside, but for example, I never do email. I never work before breakfast, and every single breakfast, I watch 10 minutes of a sitcom every morning.
Which one?
It obviously can be Friends, can be Seinfeld, can be Frasier, can be How I Met Your Mother, whatever. Just 10 minutes of that every single morning. And people think I'm crazy, and past girlfriends thought I was a freak. But that keeps me sane. And only after I start the work, then it finishes, and then I go out with Argos, my dog, and that's it. So that structure is super important. And the hope part, yes, I have hope in. We think, not only me, my group of people, we think we have the solution. So if you apply professional intelligence to environmental crime, you have the chance to seriously disrupt those people. Okay, so I have hope in my solution. You give me enough money, and I will stop wildlife trafficking in a continent. Give me 2 years, nobody moves. Okay.
Wow.
So yes, but the point is that I don't have that money.
Right.
I have the solution. So I need investors, so to speak, that believe in this solution based on almost 10 years of track record. So I didn't start yesterday. And law enforcement, it's funny, I cannot give you the details. At the moment, we have at least half a dozen US law enforcement agencies that not only want our information, but they're also unofficially asking, oh, would you like to work here? Would you like to work there? I say, listen, guys, I don't print money in the basement, not yet. So we have to find a way to make it work. But give me enough money, and I will stop wildlife trafficking in South America in 2 years.
How much money?
Well, we do need a budget of $2-3 million a year, which is still very small compared
That's nothing.
big NGOs that have a budget of $100 million, right? But for us, even that is super difficult to get. So we need for help.
And that leads me right to my my last question, or my next to last question, is environmental crime. It's not something that we essentially hear all the time. Yeah, we, like you said, we read about the little fish. We read about the poachers. We read about the skirmishes between the rangers but it's not a very prevalent part of news coverage or aware in society. And why do you think that is? And how would we change that in the knowledge that, this is a very big business? It's, like you said, the annual income of the environmental crime, and it's fourth on the list of criminal organizations. How do we generate more awareness, and why do you think that we don't pay enough attention to it at this time?
I don't know why we don't pay attention. We do need to do a better job on the media side. That's why we are now working on our third documentary. This time will be a documentary series only about us, so we will not spotlight with others. So finally, we'll be able to tell the whole story and explain to the public exactly, how the real picture. That is needed. We are also working on a fiction based on my life with some Hollywood producers, and because again, documentaries are great, but with the fiction you reach masses of people, right? You can finally I always remember, the benchmark for me, it was still Blood Diamond, if you remember, with Capital. I remember after Blood Diamond, my grandmother was asking questions about her diamonds. So when your mother is asking question, you did a good job. As it means that you reach every single soul.
Mhm.
I would like to do the same also for environmental crime. Finally explain, hey, environmental crime is not about the poacher in Africa who kills the elephants and the ranger who kills the poacher. Because by the way, this poacher very often is just the poor soul trying to make a living, okay? And who can simply cannot refuse 3, 4, 5 years of salary to kill one animal.
Right.
If I start offering 5 years of salary in Los Angeles, they will kill their mother probably. So so how can we here from our bubble, how can we judge a poor guy in Kenya or Tanzania that makes usually $2 a day?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
But they became the villain, unfortunately.
who would you want to play you in a movie, in a fictionalized movie?
I don't know. I don't know.
Leonardo. Hey,
Pedro
Leonardo.
Pascal came to
Leonardo.
I like. I think a good choice would be, but not because I really like Matt Damon. I think Matt Damon
Matt Damon.
is
Yeah.
the right person to do it. I think.
All right.
He's all about water. Isn't Matt all about water? Conservation. One thing that you said is interesting, and then we should probably move on, is you sleep well. You sleep like a baby.
Miraculously, I have various problems, but not that one. I think there is an angel who puts me to sleep every night.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but I sleep. So that's also a big part of my health process. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if there this may be the right time to say, we talked about Dante.
Yeah.
To talk about Dante and your how that affects your life, how his poetry affects your life.
Yeah, we were talking about poetry before, and we're discussing about and if I have to think about poetry, I like very much the Divine Comedy of Dante that you probably, maybe, I don't know if you studied, but in Italy is, of course, is compulsory. But I always felt a bit of, analogy with my life, because professional life, because in the Divine Comedy, he begins a journey with a guide, and he goes through hell, purgatory, and heaven, meeting all kind of people. And sometimes good people are actually bad, and bad people are actually not that bad. And this is exactly my experience, actually. Going through the lives of all these people we research, investigate, and in one day, sometimes I go through hell, purgatory, and heaven, single day. So, yeah.
That's fascinating.
So you have the theme for your upcoming book or movie. You're going to update Dante's Divine Comedy in your life.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
And so for people that listen to this podcast, Earth League International is a critical organization to fund, needs as much money as possibly can be funded. And watch the 2 films, Sea of Shadows and The Ivory Game, to see what Andrea and his team are doing to help our planet. And Anne, what else would you have for closing?
No, I just want to mention that it'll also be on our LinkedIn page and our Facebook page too, so that they can look up information about Earth League International and be able to contribute if they didn't catch the name here or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea.
My pleasure. Great pleasure.
Dear friend, you're wonderful. Thank you.
You're inspirational, and you touched on all the things that are so important to cope with life: the nature, laughter, music, and a pet. I think we all feel the same. It's wonderful. Thank you.
The highlight of my day are usually sitcoms and my dog Argos. These are the 2.
Yeah. That's great.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye-bye. Have a good day.